Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung. Have you ever woken up from a dream so vivid and strange that it lingered with you throughout the entire day? The kind of dream that felt like it meant something more than just mental noise? Picture this. An elderly man sits in his study, surrounded by a lifetime of research. He's one of the most brilliant psychologists of his era. Someone who has dedicated decades to understanding the human mind's deepest mysteries. Doctors and scholars worldwide respect his work, yet something bothers him. There's a nagging frustration he can't shake. His ideas, the very insights he believes could help people live richer lives, remain locked away in academic language that ordinary people find impenetrable. Then one night, everything changes. He has a dream. In this dream, he's not tucked away in his study discussing theories with fellow academics. Instead, he's standing in a bustling public square, a marketplace packed with everyday people, and he's speaking to them. But here's the remarkable part. They're not confused or bored. They're completely absorbed. They understand every word. That man was Carl Jung. When he woke from that dream, he realized he had to do something he'd resisted his entire career. He needed to write a book for everyone, not just specialists. A book that would unlock the secret language of the mind for regular people like you and me. That book became Man and His Symbols. It was his final work, a parting gift to humanity, finished just days before his death. What Jung promised in those pages is what I'm offering you today. We're about to explore the most mysterious territory that exists, the hidden landscape of your own mind. We'll discover the secret language of your unconscious, dive into the world of dreams and symbols. By the time we're done, you'll understand something profound. Your dreams aren't random mental static. They're messages, deeply personal and surprisingly urgent messages from the wisest part of yourself, trying to guide you toward a fuller, more authentic life. So let's dive in. Let's learn what our dreams have been trying to tell us all along. Here's an interesting question to start with. What's the real difference between the letters UN and a cross? Both are symbols, right? Well, not quite. Jung makes a fascinating distinction here. The letters UN are what he'd call a sign. They point to something specific and known. The United Nations. It has one clear meaning. Once you learn it, there's nothing more to discover. A cross, though, that's a true symbol. Sure, it can represent Christianity or mark a grave. But it reaches far beyond that. It speaks of sacrifice, suffering, the meeting point of heaven and earth, a center where opposites collide. It hints at something vast and mysterious that we feel in our bones but can never fully put into words. A sign simply points at something concrete. A symbol opens a doorway into the unknown. Our modern world is drowning in signs, but we've practically forgotten how to read symbols. And in that forgetting, we've lost touch with the most important part of ourselves, the unconscious. Now, when you hear unconscious, your mind probably jumps to Sigmund Freud, Jung's famous mentor who later became his rival. For Freud, the unconscious was basically your mind's dark basement, where you stuffed all the embarrassing desires, shameful memories, and forbidden thoughts that polite society couldn't handle. It was like a psychological prison cell for your worst impulses. Jung saw something completely different. He believed the unconscious wasn't just a basement, it was an entire undiscovered continent within you. Not a garbage dump of repressed memories, but a vibrant, creative, wise world infinitely larger than our conscious mind, the part we usually think of as me. Our conscious ego is like a small boat bobbing on the ocean's surface. The unconscious? That's the ocean itself, deep, ancient, powerful, and teeming with life. So how does this vast ocean communicate with our little conscious boat? Through dreams. For Jung, dreams are the natural, unfiltered voice of the unconscious. They're not trying to hide anything from us, as Freud thought. They're simply speaking in their native language, which happens to be symbols. Dreams don't operate with logic and linear thinking. They use images, stories, emotions, and metaphors. This is exactly why we dismiss our dreams so easily. We wake up and think, that made absolutely no sense. We try forcing them through our logical, rational mind, which is like trying to understand poetry as if it were a computer manual. We're using completely the wrong tool. So what are dreams actually trying to accomplish? Jung's breakthrough discovery was that dreams are compensatory. Their job is to restore our psychological balance. When our conscious attitude tips too far in one direction, the dream provides the counterweight. Imagine someone who's incredibly arrogant, strutting around thinking they're better than everyone. They might dream of falling from a great height or finding themselves dressed in rags. Their conscious mind has become inflated, so their unconscious sends humbling images to bring them back down to earth. Or think about someone who's excessively timid, always saying yes, never standing up for themselves. They might dream of roaring like a lion or winning a mighty battle. The dream is revealing the strength they possess, but their conscious mind has forgotten. The unconscious constantly seeks wholeness. It's actually our greatest friend, guide, and advisor. But sometimes its guidance can be genuinely terrifying. Jung tells the story of a businessman involved in some shady dealings. To compensate, this man developed an obsession with dangerous mountain climbing, always seeking to literally get, quote, above himself. He came to Jung with a disturbing dream. He saw himself stepping off a mountain summit into empty space. Jung immediately recognized the warning. He told the man this dream foreshadowed a fatal mountain accident and begged him to be careful. But the man brushed off the advice. 6 months later, while climbing, at a particularly difficult spot, he suddenly released the rope as if he were jumping into the air, his guide later reported. He fell to his death. His unconscious had detected the self-destructive impulse hiding beneath his conscious ambition and sent a crystal-clear warning. He just refused to listen. Our dreams, then, aren't nightly entertainment. They're direct, personal, meaningful communications from the deepest part of our being, using a universal alphabet of symbols that Jung called archetypes. If dreams are sentences, archetypes are the letters. They're universal inherited patterns of human thought and experience hardwired into our psyche. Just as birds instinctively know how to build nests, we're born with a predisposition to understand the world through these archetypal patterns. You already recognize them, even if you don't know their names. They're the recurring characters in every myth, fairy tale, and religion throughout human history. They're the same figures that appear in the movies we love, and, most importantly, in our own dreams. The first and most crucial archetype we all must confront on our journey of self-discovery is the shadow. The shadow represents everything we've repressed in ourselves, everything we refuse to admit we are. It's our dark side. Our envy, greed, anger, laziness, cowardice. It's all those qualities we criticize mercilessly in other people, but refuse to recognize in ourselves. Ever met someone who instantly irritates you for no logical reason? Someone whose mere presence sets your teeth on edge. Jung would say you're probably seeing your own shadow projected onto them. We're experts at spotting our own faults when they appear in others. It's so much easier than facing them in ourselves. Political conflicts are a massive playground for shadow projection. We project our collective darkness onto the enemy, whether that's another country, political party, or social group. We see them as purely evil, which conveniently lets us see ourselves as purely good. But in doing this, part of our own personality remains with the enemy, and we secretly feed the very thing we claim to hate. Confronting the shadow is the first real test of courage on the path to wholeness. As Jung puts it, it's the psychological equivalent of the labors of Hercules. It means taking a long, brutally honest look at the parts of ourselves we're most ashamed of. But here's the twist. The shadow isn't purely evil. It also contains our positive, undeveloped potential. It's like a treasure chest buried in darkness. It holds our spontaneity, creativity, raw vitality. A man who's overly disciplined and rigid might dream of his shadow appearing as a carefree, laughing vagabond. This isn't an evil figure. It's a lost part of himself, a capacity for joy he desperately needs to reclaim. The goal isn't to destroy the shadow, but to integrate it, to recognize its power for both good and ill, and bring it into the light of consciousness. Once we start wrestling with our shadow, another figure often emerges from the unconscious. This one's more subtle, more alluring, and in some ways more powerful. For men, it's a female figure. For women, a male figure. Jung called this archetype the soul image. For men, he named it the anima. For women, the animus. The anima personifies all the feminine psychological tendencies in a man's psyche: his capacity for personal love, his feeling for nature, his moods and hunches, his relationship to the irrational and unconscious. A man's anima is initially shaped by his mother. If that experience was negative, his anima might appear as a poisonous, critical inner voice whispering, "You're worthless. Nothing you do makes sense." It can drag him into dark moods, depression, even suicidal thoughts. This is the femme fatale, the siren, whose beautiful song lures sailors to destruction. But if a man learns to listen to his anima without being possessed by her moods, she becomes his greatest guide. She's the bridge to the unconscious, Beatrice leading Dante into paradise. She's the inner voice connecting him to his deepest values and life's meaning. She's the muse, inspiring the artist, the hunch, guiding the scientist. The animus is the corresponding figure in a woman's psyche, personifying her masculine side, her capacity for logical thinking, courage, initiative. Often shaped by her father, it can manifest as rigid, unarguable sacred convictions about how things ought to be. A negative animus can make a woman cold, stubborn, brutally argumentative, possessed by opinions that are technically correct but utterly divorced from actual human situations. In myths, this is Bluebeard, the mysterious husband who secretly murders his wives. He represents a web of cold, calculating thoughts that can sever a woman from her feelings and genuine human connection. But a positive animus gives a woman inner support, spiritual firmness, and enterprising spirit. He connects her mind to the great creative ideas of her time and gives her the courage to bring her unique truth into the world. For both men and women, the first encounter with the anima or animus usually happens through projection. A man doesn't realize he has an inner feminine side. Instead, he projects it onto a real woman. This is the thunderbolt of love at first sight. He sees a woman and feels he's known her forever. He's not seeing her as she truly is. He's seeing his own soul reflected back. This is why such relationships can be magical and dangerous. He's placed an impossible divine burden on an ordinary human being. The work of maturity is withdrawing that projection, realizing the goddess he seeks lives within himself, and building a real human relationship with the actual woman standing before him. This journey of confronting the shadow and integrating the anima or animus is part of a much larger archetypal story, the hero's journey. This is perhaps the world's most universal myth, found in every culture from ancient Greece to modern Hollywood. It's the story of a hero with a miraculous birth, who shows early signs of superhuman strength, rises to power, fights evil forces, usually a dragon or monster, and then, often through a tragic flaw of pride, is betrayed and dies a heroic death. Why is this story so universal? Because, Jung and his colleagues explain, it's the story of our own ego consciousness developing. Each of us is the hero of our own life. Our journey from protected childhood dependency to adult responsibility is a heroic quest. The monster we must fight is our own inertia, our regressive longing to return to the safety of mother's embrace, to remain a child forever. In many myths, the hero must rescue a beautiful maiden from a dragon. This maiden symbolizes the anima. The dragon often symbolizes the devouring mother, not the real mother, but the mother archetype threatening to keep the son in eternal infancy, preventing him from becoming his own man. The hero must slay the dragon to liberate his own soul, the anima, so he can connect with the world and discover his creative path. This entire process, this journey of confronting the shadow, integrating the soul image, and embarking on the hero's quest, has one ultimate goal. Jung gave it a special name, individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming an individual, an undivided whole person. It's the single most important journey any of us can take. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming complete. One of Jung's colleagues, M.L. von Franz, uses a beautiful metaphor to explain this. Imagine the seed of a mountain pine. It contains the blueprint of the entire future tree. But that seed falls in a particular spot. It must deal with the soil quality, the rocks in its way, the sun's direction, the wind's force. The tree that grows is the unique result of its inner blueprint, meeting the outer circumstances of its life. It doesn't try to be another tree. It simply becomes itself, fully and completely. That's individuation. It's the lifelong process of becoming the person you were always meant to be. It happens when your conscious ego begins listening to and cooperating with that inner blueprint, that central organizing core of your entire psyche. Jung called this core the self. The self is the archetype of wholeness, the totality of your conscious and unconscious mind. It's the great man within that the Naskapi Indians spoke of. It's the inner God image. It's the destination of the hero's journey. If the ego is the ship's captain, the self is the silent, all-knowing navigator holding the map, knowing the final destination. Because the self represents totality and wholeness, its most common symbol across all cultures and times is the circle, or a circular image with a fourfold structure, which Jung called a mandala. Once you start looking, you see it everywhere, in the rose windows of great cathedrals, in Native American dream catchers, in the circular ground plans of ancient cities, like Rome, founded as sacred spaces with a divine center, in the halos of saints. Even, Jung suggested, in the modern myth of flying saucers, a projection of our collective unconscious longing for wholeness and salvation in a fragmented, chaotic age. When a mandala symbol appears in a dream, it's often a sign of profound healing and integration. It signals that out of your life's chaos, an inner center of order and meaning is beginning to emerge. To see how this entire journey unfolds in real life, we can turn to the remarkable case study of a young man the book calls Henry. Henry was a 25-year-old engineer, tall, shy, intelligent, deeply introverted. He stood on the threshold of adult life with a new job and an engagement, but he was paralyzed by fear and doubt. He preferred books to people and felt trapped by a powerful, unacknowledged tie to his strict, dominant mother. He was, in his own words, faced with a choice: to remain unconscious in a well-protected security, or else to venture on a yet unknown way. His analysis, remarkably short, became a powerful, accelerated journey of individuation, guided by a series of extraordinary dreams. His early dreams revealed his core conflict. In one, he was on a mountain excursion, but lost his way, only to be guided back by a wise old woman, a classic archetype of the self in feminine form. He was terrified of his own unconscious, dreaming of a sailing boat, where he was forbidden to look into the water. His repressed, instinctual side appeared as strange, monstrous animals, half pig, half dog, that terrified him. This was his shadow, the primitive, earthy part his intellectual, puritanical mind had rejected. His conflicted relationship with women appeared in a dream where a prostitute in a cave transformed into a haughty saint who cast him out. He was trapped between lust and sterile spirituality, unable to integrate the two. Then came the turning point, a dream so powerful it changed everything. He called it the Oracle Dream. In the dream, he was in a foreign city and needed to reach the railway station. The way was blocked by 4 ragged Chinese men guarding an archway. A trapper, a rough, earthy version of himself, his shadow, appeared beside him. In the fight that followed, one of the Chinese injured his leg. An oracle was consulted to decide his fate. The judgment went against him. He was to die. But he was given a second chance. This time, his ego was bound and set aside, and the trapper, his shadow self, took his place to consult the oracle, and the trapper won. Henry was saved. This dream was a profound initiation. It taught him that his conscious ego, his rational scientific mind, wasn't enough. In fact, it had failed him. He could only be saved by accepting and trusting his wot-nok, his quote, wot-nok, wot-nok, quote, no quote, no quote, no quote, nok, wot-nok, 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 quote. The primitive instinctual shadow self he'd feared and rejected. The dream forced a sacrificium intellectus, a sacrifice of the intellect. He had to surrender his conscious pride to a deeper, irrational wisdom. The effect was immediate and dramatic. His dreams became more powerful, and he began listening to them with genuine courage. Finally came the last dream of the analysis, a magnificent 4-part epic, showing his complete transformation. The dream began in the evening, with Henry and 3 friends representing the 4 functions of his psyche, drinking together with a young girl, his anima. It moved into night, where one of them, the president of France, gets drunk and urinates in the street, baptizing a child held by an old woman. This was his shadow self, his repressed instinct, breaking free in a wild, chaotic, yet strangely creative act. Then came morning. A magnificent, naked Negro walks through a snowy landscape. The Negro powerfully symbolizes Henry's integrated shadow, his primal, natural, masculine strength, no longer monstrous, but now noble and real. The dream culminates at noon. The 4 friends travel to a dark house to pay homage to the Negro. They fear he might be frozen in the cold, but he's alive. He's mute, so they can't speak to him with words. They must offer a gift, a symbol of their civilization. Henry, with deep respect, offers a simple box of matches. The matches represent controlled fire, Fire symbolizes passion, the heart, conscious awareness. In this single, humble act, Henry united the civilized product of his conscious mind with the primal, instinctual power of his unconscious. He'd healed the split within himself. At the dream's end, all the male figures join in a joyous feast. Henry's masculine totality was complete. What happened in the dream mirrored his waking life. The fear and doubt that had paralyzed him vanished. He married his fiancée 9 months after his analysis began, and they moved to Canada, where he built a successful career and family. He'd completed the first half of his individuation. He'd become a man. So what do we take away from this incredible journey into Carl Jung's mind? Why does a book written over half a century ago feel more urgent and relevant today than ever? I think it's because our modern world, for all its technological miracles, has led us into profound disconnection. We're disconnected from nature, from each other, and most tragically, from ourselves. We live in the brightly lit, noisy world of the conscious mind, the world of schedules, ambitions, social media feeds, endless distractions. We've forgotten there's another world, a deeper world within us. Jung's work is a powerful, urgent reminder that we're more than just our conscious egos. We have a vast, wise, ancient inner companion, the unconscious, constantly trying to speak to us, to guide us back to wholeness. The great tragedy of modern life isn't that we don't have the answers. It's that we've stopped listening to the part of ourselves that does. The message of man and his symbols is ultimately one of profound hope and empowerment. It tells us that your life isn't a series of random, meaningless events. There's a story unfolding within you, a pattern, a purpose. You're on your own unique hero's journey toward becoming the person you were born to be. And your dreams? They're the map. They're nightly dispatches from the self, your inner navigator, showing you where you are and where you need to go next. This journey isn't easy. It requires courage. The courage to face your shadow, to look honestly at the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. It requires the humility to accept that your rational mind doesn't have all the answers, that sometimes you must surrender to a wisdom deeper than your own understanding. It is, as Jung knew, the only adventure left that's truly worthwhile. So how do you begin this adventure? It starts with simple, practical steps. First, get a notebook and place it by your bed. From now on, when you wake up, before checking your phone, before even getting out of bed, write down whatever you remember of your dreams. Don't worry about what they mean. Don't try analyzing them. Just record them. The simple act of paying attention, of writing them down, sends a powerful message to your unconscious. It says, "I'm listening." And, as the Naskapi hunters discovered, when you listen, the great man within begins speaking more clearly. Second, start paying attention to your projections. The next time someone makes you unreasonably angry or fills you with blind admiration, pause and ask yourself, what part of my own self am I seeing in this person? What quality in them, good or bad, is actually a disowned part of my own personality? This simple question begins the process of withdrawing your projections and taking back ownership of your shadow. And finally, look for the symbols in your own life. What stories, movies, or myths move you deeply? What images resonate with you? These are clues, echoes of the archetypes active in your own psyche, trying to get your attention. Follow that thread of fascination. It will lead you closer to your inner world. That was a summary of Man and His Symbols by Carl Gustav Jung. We've explored the major landmarks of his thought today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a travel brochure. The real adventure only begins when you take the trip yourself. The true magic of a book like this happens in those quiet moments of reading. When a particular story or a single phrase connects with something deep inside you in a way you never expected. This summary is a map, designed to show you the terrain and help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity or touched a part of you that feels true, then I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning new ideas. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself, your dreams, and your place in the world. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning, and let's keep growing together.